Darth Maul trained Anakin. This is Maul. He was once the apprentice of Darth Sidious, but was left for dead on Naboo when defeated by Obi-Wan after the death of Qui-Gon Jinn. Later, it was revealed that his hatred for Obi-Wan had kept him alive, and he'd been living in a literal dump for years. This episode of Clone Wars traumatized me when I was a kid, but looking back, it really helped build the story, especially after Maul finally was defeated by Sidious and reduced to a low-level crime lord, scavenging for the scraps that his master left behind. Eventually, the maddened Maul fell even lower, doomed to roam the galaxy with no purpose other than revenge. Ultimately, he was freed in death by Obi-Wan on Tatooine. However, what if Maul had gone a different route during the Phantom Menace? What if he had been healed early and had been able to train Anakin Skywalker? That's the story that we'll be exploring today, and I can tell you for sure that this journey will take us on some unexpected twists. So buckle up and get ready to hop right in to the story of what if Darth Maul trained Anakin. Our story begins on Tatooine, where Maul is chasing Qui-Gon and Anakin as they're running back to the Naboo starship in the desert. Qui-Gon tells Anakin to duck, and he does. However, Maul senses that something is different about this young boy. Rather than continue to pursue the two Jedi, Maul swoops around on his speeder, grabs Anakin, and speeds off in the other direction. Anakin screams in pain, his dreams of becoming a Jedi slowly being shattered by Maul's kidnapping. Qui-Gon recommends that the pilots of the Naboo starship go after Maul, but they refuse. Their ship is not geared for combat, and they will do whatever it is necessary to protect Queen Amidala. Therefore, they simply take off and head for Coruscant, losing the young boy to this Sith apprentice. How does this impact the overall Star Wars narrative? Well, let's find out. As the Naboo delegation takes off, Maul returns to his ship. He contacts his master, informing him of how the Jedi had escaped. However, Maul holds back the information about how he'd stolen Anakin. He wants to train Anakin in secret so that one day, the pair of them can overtake Sidious and continue the legacy of the Sith. Maul decides to break the rule of two, but to do it in secret. He would not tell Sidious about the boy. Following this, Maul decides to take Anakin to Dathomir. He introduces Anakin to the Night Sisters and begins to train Anakin in the ways of the dark side. Maul subjects Anakin to the same brutal pain that Sidious subjected him to, making Anakin hate him and encouraging that hatred to flow through the young boy. Anakin ends up becoming battered and broken, and when the time comes for Maul to leave and speak with his master about the grand plan on Coruscant, Anakin feels defeated. This is not the life that he envisioned for himself. However, Anakin finds comfort in the nurturing arms of Mother Talzin. While she is a dark side Force user, she also cares immensely for the members of her tribe. While Maul was a Sith, Anakin was nothing yet. He was just a boy who had no idea how to harness his powers. Talzin empathizes with him, and she begins to teach him in the ways of the dark magic alongside the young Night Sisters of her clan. During Maul's absence, Anakin becomes stronger, learning how to harness his hatred and dark emotions into something productive. He also found a very deep sense of camaraderie with the Night Sisters that he trained with. Meanwhile, Maul is still defeated on Naboo by Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon still dies, and Maul falls down the plasma mine shaft just like he did in the Phantom Menace. However, as he falls, Maul slows his descent using the Force. Using hatred as a fuel, Maul manages to grab onto the side of the shaft and climb slowly back to the top. While this may seem slightly far-fetched, remember that in canon, he used his hatred to bind together weird-looking spider legs on a garbage world. So I think that this is just as reasonable and a justifiable way for Maul to have survived. He claws his way back to the top of the mine, and then proceeds to collapse in exhaustion. Luckily for him, after the reclamation of Theed by Padme's contingent, many maintenance workers and security guards are poking around the mines to ensure that they're in good condition. One of these workers finds Maul and brings him to the hospital on Naboo, where the doctors fix his legs and inject him with Bacta. Everyone is extremely confused by where this guy came from. When Maul wakes up, the doctors attempt to treat him well. However, he is frightened and enraged with Obi-Wan for cutting off his legs. He knows that he has mechanical ones now, but he's still infuriated by his defeat. He goes on a berserk rampage across the hospital, rampaging his way out and proceeding to cause havoc in Theed. And he's still getting used to his legs too, so he trips and he falls a lot, but his Force abilities help him to succeed in his rampage. Maul finds a starship in a nearby port and steals it, flying away, heading back to Dathomir. Being from Naboo, Palpatine hears about this event from some of his former constituents. He's extremely confused, especially when the people who tell him that they witnessed the event called the being a devil-like Dathomirian. Palpatine thought that this could have been his old apprentice, and he keeps his ears open for any more word of Maul resurfacing. Maul makes it back to Dathomir, and the witches greet him with happiness. They use their dark magic to help optimize his mechanical legs. They also help clear his head of much of the rage that clouds it. Anakin watches this procedure, concerned for his master, despite how Maul had treated him during the beginning. Anakin is much stronger in his abilities now, and he had learned from Talzin that Maul was one of his dark side brothers in the Force. When Maul is healed, he requests that Anakin show him what he learned while he'd been gone. So, Anakin displays his adeptness in the magic of the Night Sisters, and he also shows Maul skills that he'd been working on in the time that Maul had been gone. Maul's impressed, and he even believes that it is time for Anakin to create his own lightsaber and bleed his crystal. So, because there are no crystals on Dathomir, Maul decides to take Anakin to Mustafar and go on this journey. After all, Maul needs a new saber as well. When the pair arrive on Mustafar, they enter the old Sith temple in the Gahin Plains and begin their respective journeys. Each of them undergo immense suffering, experiencing visions of their greatest fears and insecurities coming to fruition. There are also many strange beasts that they encounter in the underground network of tunnels that they have to fight off with the Force. Each of them gets closer and closer to their respective crystal, and the visions intensify. Anakin sees his mother being slaughtered mercilessly by Tusken Raiders, along with the Night Sisters protecting him. He is also shown the future, one where Sidious dominates the galaxy, and where countless people are killed. He sees the future massacre of the Sisters by General Grievous, and he feels helpless. When Anakin finally reaches his crystal, he reaches out to it with the Force and bleeds it, crying out in pain as he watches his new family burn. Maul undergoes this process for the second time, finding it even more painful. He sees Obi-Wan Kenobi defeating him again, and he also hears the piercing cackle of his old master in the darkness. Maul's alone, seeing a future where just him and Anakin fail to defeat Sidious. He sees himself electrocuted by Force lightning, just like he had been in his younger days of training. He finds a crystal and reaches out, grabs it, and bleeds it as Sidious electrocutes him in this vision. Both Anakin and Maul come out of the Sith temple with their new crystals, ready to build their sabers. When they return to Maul's ship, they put it on autopilot and begin to construct their sabers with the pieces of equipment that Maul had on his ship. Anakin creates a saber that looks like the one that Darth Vader wielded in the original trilogy, and Maul creates one that looks like his Clone Wars saber. After they arrive on Dathomir, Maul takes Anakin's training to the next level. He apologizes for how he treated Anakin when he was younger, saying that it was the only thing that he knew because of how he was treated by Sidious. Anakin forgives him and says that he knew that he only wanted Anakin to grow in his skills. Maul offers Anakin a new type of dark side dichotomy. Both of them would be equals, despite Maul being more experienced in the Force. This was modeled after the sisterhood that the Night Sisters shared, where they were all equal in value. The Sith were far too individualistic in their ways to be sustainable on a galactic scale. Maul and Anakin recognize this, and they move forward with a new perspective on the Force. Maul still wants to get revenge on Obi-Wan, and he believes that once he does this, he will finally be prepared to go after his former master. Maul goes on with his plan just like it took place in the Clone Wars. However, rather than having Savage at his side, Anakin is his apprentice. Maul watches as Dooku takes more control over the galaxy, becoming jealous of him. Maul believes that should have been him, taking more control over the galaxy for the glory of the dark side beside Sidious. Anakin reminds him that soon they will defeat Dooku. It's only a matter of time. They continue to consolidate power in the criminal underworld, and Anakin becomes Maul's enforcer. Due to Anakin's history with slavery, he outright bans it within the Shadow Collective, saying that it is the utmost evil in the galaxy, even too evil for the Sith pair. Even though he practices in the dark side, Anakin still sees the value in each being in the Force due to his training with the Night Sisters. All of the factions within Maul's collective who failed to abolish slavery end up facing Anakin's wrath, and they meet a painful demise. Maul consolidates power over Mandalore, throwing the Duchess in prison and appointing Almec to be his prime minister after he defeats Pre Vizsla. This grabs the attention of Obi-Wan, who comes to Mandalore to visit his former lover. He may not act on his feelings, but they're still there. The Mandalorians capture Obi-Wan upon arrival, as Bo-Katan's Night Owls have gone underground, and Maul uses the Darksaber to execute Satine in front of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is heartbroken, and Maul revels in his sorrow. Anakin also scoffs at the Jedi, disappointed with this man's weakness. Anakin recognizes Obi-Wan's presence in the Force as one who had been nearby when Qui-Gon told him to duck, and he's happy to know that he hadn't gotten involved with an organization that preached weakness like Anakin perceived the Jedi Order did. Maul throws Obi-Wan back in prison, wanting him to rot, knowing that he hadn't been able to save the love of his life. The Night Owls end up breaking him out, but the damage that Maul wanted to inflict had been done. Palpatine knows what Maul is doing in the galaxy, but he brushes off most of it. He doesn't care that his old apprentice is consolidating power in the criminal underworld. However, when the Jedi inform Palpatine of Maul's actions on Mandalore, he's taken aback. This is a huge move for his former apprentice. Palpatine believes that Maul may soon challenge his power, especially after taking over a major world like Mandalore. So, he decides that he's going to go to Mandalore and teach Maul a lesson. Hey folks, if you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications as we update this channel weekly with new What If content. Now, back to the story. Sidious arrives on Mandalore, and Maul immediately senses his presence. Maul tells Anakin that the moment is here, the moment for them to challenge the powerful Sith Lord. Anakin also senses Sidious's darkness and is almost overwhelmed. He'd only heard stories of Sidious's evil and depth in the dark side, but sensing it for the first time was truly gut-wrenching. However, Anakin is more upset about Sidious's treatment of Maul that had rubbed off on him during his younger years. And so, this hatred allows him to develop the strength to be able to confront the Dark Lord. When Sidious enters the Mandalorian throne room, Maul greets his master with open arms. As a matter of fact, Maul even shows him the kingdom that he's created in the shadows, saying that it was all for the glory of the Sith. He even asks if Sidious would want to join forces with him, uniting to control even more of the galaxy in a new dark side order. Sidious laughs at this proposal, as Maul thought he would, saying that his old apprentice means nothing to him, and that his dominion that Maul had established was pitiful compared to the true vision of the Sith. He tells Maul that he stepped out of line, and that now he needs to be dealt with. Sidious's first move is to blast a barrage of force lightning at his old apprentice, so Anakin activates his lightsaber to block it. Sidious cackles, chiding this boy for daring to challenge him. However, Anakin was no mere boy anymore. Because of his high midichlorian count and training in both the ways of the Sith and the Night Sisters, Anakin is confident that he could stand a chance against this aging master, especially with Maul by his side. Anakin begins to use some dark side magic, chanting painful curses to ail Sidious during their fight. Sidious is taken aback. While he's proficient in dark side alchemy and dark side sorcery, he doesn't know how to counter these magic attacks by the Night Sister magic. Mother Talzin was one of the few Force users in the galaxy that Sidious feared, and Anakin, knowing both her ways and the ways of the Sith, concerned him. He was caught off guard, which allowed for Maul and Anakin to go in for the kill. Anakin begins to slice at Sidious with his lightsaber, attempting to go for the killing blow. Sidious stumbles back, his mind clouded by the dark magic. Maul joins in the fight, steaming with rage, slashing at Sidious with ferocious strikes. Sidious blocks many of these strikes, but he can't contain them all. He tries to wriggle free of Anakin's spells, but he's unable to do so, because the Night Sister magic that Anakin is using is just too strong, especially combined with the normal dark side abilities. Anakin and Maul push Sidious to the ground, each putting their lightsabers to his throat. Sidious cackles, begging them to give in to their hatred for him. Maul, however, has other plans for Sidious. He didn't know that Sidious was the Chancellor, but upon removing his hood, the pair is floored by the fact that they have just captured the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. Maul sees incredible potential in this capture. He records a message and he posts it onto the HoloNet. Always craving more power, Maul believes that he can get the Republic to surrender to him and Anakin if they show that they have captured the Chancellor. He gloats in front of the camera, holding the Republic for ransom. Maul laughs as he gives a list of demands. Palpatine merely sits patiently, knowing that he could use all of this to his advantage. The dark side magic has faded. Palpatine is thinking clearly again. He also didn't use his full power against Maul and Anakin because he sensed that Anakin had potential to be his new apprentice. Dooku was getting old, after all, and Maul was clearly delusional. Maul has Anakin escort Palpatine to one of the Mandalorian jail cells, and on the way, Palpatine tries to convince Anakin that he would make a fantastic Sith. Anakin scoffs at Palpatine, knowing that the ways of the Sith were outdated, and that he was going in to usher in a new era of dark side power with Maul. Palpatine argues that Maul was completely crazy, and that the Republic would crush his small group of Mandalorian warriors and assorted criminals. Anakin shrugged off these doubts, but there was something in him that made him think Palpatine might have a point. Immediately after Maul's message, the Senate issued a statement demanding that Maul release the Chancellor. They say that Maul's actions have violated the neutrality of Mandalore, and that the Republic will bring the full might down upon the planet if he refuses to comply. Maul, believing that the Republic is weak, laughs this off, hoping to humiliate them for not giving in to his demands. The people of Mandalore are a little bit frustrated with Maul's actions, but they respect his wishes because he is in possession of the Darksaber. Anakin's doubts continue to grow as he sees Maul doesn't see the actual power of the full Republic military and the countless Jedi that will be assailing his facility. However, when Anakin raises these concerns, Maul just laughs him off. He'd gotten completely mad with the prospect of power, especially after defeating both Obi-Wan and his former master. He had a big sense of self and grandeur. Anakin couldn't talk sense into him. A few days later, the Republic arrives. The first course of action that the Republic takes is landing their clones on the surface, causing chaos in the city of Sundari. The Mandalorians fight valiantly against these clone attackers, seeing this as an unjust and unprovoked attack by the Republic. Well, not exactly unprovoked, but definitely unjust. The Mandalorian sect kills lots of clone troopers and even does a good job of engaging with the Jedi, using their Mandalorian technology to fight against the Jedi's use of the Force. Their ancient rivalry is revitalized, and the playing field looks fairly even. In the sky, Mandalorians from Concord Dawn end up using their gauntlet starships to counter the Republic gunships, bombers, and starfighters. Despite having limited resources, these Mandalorians are a thorn in the side of Admiral Yularen, who commands the attack in the sky. The crime bosses under Maul's control also help with the fight, both in the sky and on the ground. Maul and Anakin stand outside of the throne room, slaying all of the clones who dare confront them. Even Jedi generals are no match for the powerful Darkseid duo. They are disposed of easily by the pair's combined mastery of Sith powers and Darkseid magic. Very quickly into the conflict, the Confederacy of Independent Systems also shows up. They saw the message and quickly launched a plan to steal the Chancellor from Maul's government, and they launched their own attack on Mandalore. Now, a three-way conflict brews between these galactic factions, ravaging Mandalore and Concordia with the space rubble and these broken droids. There seems to be no strategy as the conflict rages on. Instead, only chaos. Once again, Anakin begins to doubt the validity of Maul's attempts to ransom the Republic. It seems that his plan was only creating needless chaos. This was not the galaxy that he had envisioned ruling one day. Anakin craved order, seeking to establish a new Darkseid government that controlled the galaxy. This was not control. This was pure, unbridled chaos. For the first time, Anakin saw into the depths of Maul's mind. He could see that Maul was enjoying this absolute madness rather than wanting an end to the conflict and seeing the value of each life that was fighting. The destruction didn't bother Maul. Instead, he thrived on it. Anakin began to think that Darth Sidious was correct. He saw that Maul was mad and a broken man who was weak at heart. Maul lacked patience and discipline, two core values of the dark side. So, deep into the conflict, Anakin literally stabs Maul in the back after considering these factors. Anakin says that he's sorry and that he hopes Maul can understand his actions. Shockingly, Maul thanks his apprentice for killing him. He breathes that he's been miserable for years and that the only thing keeping him going was the prospect of gaining more power, revenge, and causing chaos. There was no purpose to his life other than being a disruption and wholesomely teaching Anakin. For the first time in his life, Maul felt peace knowing that his apprentice could carry on their shared vision for a new dark side order separate from the Sith. Maul dies with respect for his student. After Anakin kills Maul, he goes into the dungeon below the palace and finds Sidious, who is deep in meditation when he arrives. Sidious asks Anakin if he's finally ready to join him, and if he's seen Maul's flaws. Anakin does not respond, simply opening the cell door and walking to meet the Sith Lord. Sidious mentions that he can feel Anakin's rage flowing through him, and that he should kill him now. Anakin ignites his saber, expecting more resistance from the Dark Lord. Anakin says that he knows Sidious's vision is just as short-sighted as Maul's, not seeing the greater purpose of the dark side dominating the galaxy. He tells Sidious that he believes the Sith are outdated and that there needs to be a new generation of dark side users that takes control of the galaxy. Sidious smirks, continuing to goad Anakin into killing him. Anakin said that he just wanted Sidious to realize his failure before he died. Then, Anakin strikes him down. Anakin walks out towards the steps of the palace, dragging Sidious's body with him. He throws it down the stairs and screams, unleashing a massive amount of Force lightning into the sky, taking out the systems of both Republic and Confederacy flagships. The combatants turn their attention to Anakin, seeing his full power. Anakin says that he has killed the Chancellor and reveals that Palpatine was actually a Sith Lord plotting to consolidate further power by orchestrating this unholy war. Anakin tells everyone in Sundari who will listen the entire story, including how he's not a Sith, but still uses immense power of the dark side. There are those who see him as a hero for his actions in ridding the Senate of a corrupt Chancellor. However, many others see him as a vigilante who acted out of his own will for the galaxy without any concern for legality. As Dooku still lives, he's concerned that Anakin may out him as a Sith as well. But Anakin doesn't really care about Dooku, in all honesty. He just wants to establish himself as a galactic presence. He thinks that Dooku is too old and wouldn't make much usefulness in his new empire. Anakin is arrested by Republic officials, and he goes with them willingly. He wants to address the Senate with his story, telling them everything, trying to frame himself as the hero of Mandalore for them. Once the Chancellor is shown to be dead, all of the factions back away from Mandalore, leaving it to clean up the aftermath of Maul's warpath. Bo-Katan rises to the task, and her Night Owls end up leading the revitalization effort on her planet. She knows that Anakin has a Darksaber because he took it from Maul, and she also has a vendetta against him for what Maul did to her world. Bo swears that one day, she will avenge the destruction of her planet and bring Mandalore back to the forefront of galactic affairs. Anakin goes before the Senate and testifies, telling his story. Because of his honesty, the Senate votes to acquit him of his crimes. Instead, they send him into rehabilitation with the Jedi, who attempt to turn Anakin to the light. Anakin plays along, but still sees the Jedi as weak. He makes it known that he disagrees with their philosophy in the Force, but also acknowledges that he has many things to learn about the light side. Anakin dives deep into his studies, trying to understand his ideological enemies from the inside. How do these events impact the greater galaxy at large? Following Palpatine's death, Padme is elected to be Chancellor of the Republic. She's tired of fighting, and she proposes a peace deal with the Confederacy. Because Dooku no longer has any master to report to, he accepts it, understanding that his mission had been accomplished. The Separatists now have their own free society. Anakin continues to study and meditate, biding his time for when he can turn against the Jedi Order. The Jedi go back to their roots, unimpressed that they could not sense the presence of the Sith Lord that had lied to their face as Chancellor of the Republic for years. However, there was one thing that Anakin hadn't taken into account during his plan. He wasn't aware that Sidious had learned how to transfer his essence into a new body after death. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, on an obscure Sith planet known only as Exegol, Palpatine's spirit enters an abomination of Sith alchemy that he has been preparing in the shadows for years. Palpatine had an army of Sith cultists at his disposal, and as a patient Sith Lord, Palpatine would wait for the perfect time to strike. While the galaxy was at peace, a careful balance was being held. Both Palpatine and Anakin would bide their time, waiting for the perfect time to strike, and hoping that one day there would be a final rematch between the two that would determine who truly was the best dark side Force user.